623 Michael Cohen, 1320 WILS on a Friday night. What a beautiful day we had, up in the 40s. Gotta love that. So President Obama, a new poll out showing that things are not looking good for him. His approval rating down to 41% in March. That is the lowest level ever, down from 43% in January. And about 54% of respondents disapprove of the job he is doing. To talk about what he's doing wrong, we're joined by Robert Earl Staub, otherwise known as Dusty. He's the author of the book, The Heart of Leadership, 12 Practices of Courageous Leaders. He's a speaker, author, also a leadership trainer. Dusty, thank you for joining us this evening.
My pleasure, Mike.
You said your father gave you the name Dusty. Where'd that come from?
Well, Staub is a German word that means dust. And my father was the only Bob Staub that was going to exist. So when I was 1 day old, he nicknamed me Dusty.
I see. Was he German, your father?
No. He fought in World War II in Korea, but his great-grandfather, Adam Staub, came from Germany.
Okay. Now, let me ask you off the bat, how good of a leader do you think President Obama is?
I think he's failing as a leader. And, I have 7 major dimensions I talk about when it comes to leadership. Let me just talk about the base, the 7th one that everything rests on. It's called courage. And there are distinct acts of courage. And I will tell you that the problem that our president is having is that he is projecting a perception of weakness and indecision.
Do you think he's personally weak himself?
No, I don't think he's personally weak, but what I think is this is a guy who's a Harvard-trained lawyer. He was a community organizer. He was in the Senate for 2 years before he ran for president. He's in over his head. On-the-job training is always a challenge for any president or prime minister anywhere, and there's a lot to learn, but his learning curve was very steep, and I think he went in with some intellectual arrogance. He knew he was smart. He knew a lot. He knew what he wanted to do. He's got a lot of ideals. He's a good man at heart, but you cannot speechify, forgive me, little Abner, you cannot speechify your way into getting results.
Tell me, though, how would you say he's not succeeding in projecting courage? What is he doing wrong?
First of all, let's talk about just a couple examples. One was the red line for Syria about using chemical weapons that wasn't really a red line. He was going to take action, and then Congress had to approve it, and then he let the Russians really take over. So that projected some real weakness to our allies in that area and allies around the world. He believes that saying something is as good as doing something, and to say is not to do. Lawrence Bossidy, the old CEO of Allied Signaler, a really great leader, said leaders are known by what they do more than what they say. And our president's very good at saying a lot of good stuff. He's not so good at getting it done or doing it. And right now, President Putin is running circles around him because he's got the courage to take action and to move things forward. I don't like his agenda, but he certainly will act, whereas our president intellectualizes, analyzes, overanalyzes, has the paralysis of excessive self-analysis, and I think that gives the projected feeling of weakness.
So, and what do you think it is? I mean, when you're doing that instead of being decisive, what happens there? Why do you think he's not able to actually decisively make a declaration or pull a trigger if necessary?
I think he looks at all sides of things, and he tries to analyze everything, and I think he overanalyzes. And he hasn't had, as I said, a lot of experience. So you're a Harvard lawyer, community organizer, in the Senate for only 2 years, never put a bill forward. I think that he just hasn't had the experience. And
let me ask you this, though: if you have leaders obviously that think too much, leaders that maybe don't think enough, how do you know if the leader is being maybe overactive and not analyzing anything on his own?
Who is he listening to? What kind of counsel does he take? When Obama took over and he was bringing in his staff, one of the quotes attributed to him was, yeah, he was bringing in people, but he really trusted his judgment more than anyone else's, and he thought he knew what the right thing to do was. I think any president needs the best and the smartest advisors they can get, and Obama kind of surrounded himself with people who thought a lot like him and none who would really challenge him. And I think we're seeing some of the dividends of that right now.
Do you think a leader can develop courage in the position, or is it something you either have or don't have?
I think you can develop it. The trial for Obama is, how does he respond? A Russian legislature was quoted as saying, the Americans and the Europeans will speak, but they won't do anything. This will blow over in a matter of months. if Obama lets this stand, and he really just keeps talking and doesn't really take action, and I mean really significant action, I think we're setting up the stage for a whole new Cold War, and we're setting up the stage in some really bad ways. So the question is, if he digs down deep, does he have the guts? Does he have the heart to really take decisive action and to really step forward and say, this will not stand?
And putting aside the president, any leader who maybe, as you say, overanalyzes, maybe just simply isn't courageous to make tough decisions, what does it take for them to develop or actually get ignited to become courageous?
Sometimes it's a trial by fire. Sometimes it is really seeing the consequences of not taking action. Sometimes it is somebody who gives them a kick in the seat of the pants. It's certainly, sometimes it's the critic. Sometimes our biggest critic is the biggest ally we can have. Unfortunately, he doesn't seem to tolerate, he lacks the courage to be confronted also, which makes it tough to develop that courage then.
Is that a key part of any good leader, being able to accept criticism directly?
Oh, yeah. In fact, the very best leaders invite criticism and contrary viewpoints because they realize I need to see the other side of this, and I may be doing something wrong here. Right. And he has, the first 2 years he was in office, he did not listen to Republicans. He pushed through the Affordable Care Act, called Obamacare, just pushed it through without a single Republican vote.
Right. I'm curious because part of leadership many times is a strong ego. How do leaders with ego, how are they able to get themselves to listen to especially harsh criticism?
I think the best leaders are humbly arrogant or arrogantly humble. You got to have the arrogance to believe you can make a difference. Obama certainly believes that as our president, but he seemed to lack the humility to really listen to contrary viewpoints and to open himself up to criticism. So without that humility, the confidence just becomes sheer arrogance, and that leads to thinking that just because you say something, it's a fact. Look at the Affordable Care Act. The law is not a law. How many revisions, how many things have been pushed back? 2 years, 3 years, changes, rather than really facing the fact that there are flaws here that really need some fundamental work, or simply pushing them through. He keeps trying to please different parties. So he may ultimately just lack the backbone, the heart, to really do what is required. I don't know.
He's been in office for quite some time at this point. Robert Earl Staub, author of the book The Heart of Leadership, 12 Practices of Courage, of Courageous Leaders. Robert, otherwise known as Dusty, Robert Earl Staub again. Robert, thanks so much.
Mike, my pleasure. Thank you.
Great having you here.